to this session, read it all out, and I didn't press the broadcast button. Wonderful. So we've now got a number of people joining us over the internet. The magic of the internet. What a wonderful thing. That is the most special thing I've done for quite a while. So apologies everyone for being so late. That is completely my own fault. But now we can see that we've got so many people. For those people who are just joining us, then I managed to not press the broadcast button. So Rob and Dom have both sat here listening to my introduction. I'm now going to do it again. So welcome everyone to the Marketing Meetup webinar, the first on a Thursday. Say what? Magic. Despite the outrageousness of doing a webinar on a Thursday, let me welcome Dominic and Rob to our webinar today. This will be the second time, by the way, that the folks on YouTube will be able to have seen this introduction, but also the first for anyone on Zoom. Dominic is the MD of Brand Recruitment, Rob, the MD of Pitch Consultants. This is the second time I've made this joke, but recruiters aren't all evil. In fact, there's a lot of good ones out there, and we're lucky to have two of the absolute best. In front of us, we have two really good guys. Whether it's giving back to the Marketing Meetup community or the wider community, these two have made a conscious choice to do business in the right way and look to help people in the process. I'm really grateful for them both being here today. This is so funny. I'm so...
You can do it, Joe.
Yeah, I've got it.
You got it. You got it.
On a personal level, I've spent a good amount of time with both these chaps, and let me just say they're nothing but outstanding human beings. I really love the company of both of them and the fact that they've come to the Marketing Meetup community over the years with so many ideas and their giving nature. Let me just say they are really appreciated, truly appreciated. And why is this session important? Well, I feel like in one way it's kind of obvious, but on another it does need to be stated that these past 10 weeks have hit us all like an absolute cannonball. And while we're all going to be suffering in different ways, we're all going to be having different ramifications from it all. In a business context, the jobs market has been one that's been hit the hardest. Government figures yesterday estimated a quarter of the workforce are now on furlough, but now there's also a vast amount of people who were unemployed before who are now reeling because that market has only got harder. While this is really, really, really hard, today's session will be at least useful for those of you joining, because it will let you know what's going on, but also hopefully what you can do to stand out in this situation too. This session will be split into two. Well, in fact, it'll be split into three because the first was the pre-introduction and now you get the actual introduction. But after this, you'll get 30 minutes presentation, 30 minutes Q&A, roughly speaking for both. And all I can say is get your questions in now using the Q&A feature. That's found in your Zoom window. Wiggle your mouse, get those questions in, and also use the thumbs up feature. I will literally be asking questions from the top as and when we have them. Let me thank all the sponsors once again, all of whom have just been ridiculously unbelievable since the beginning of this journey. You've had them mentioned in the email you got this morning. You'll have them mentioned again afterwards. My one ask for each of these companies is that you just take 10 seconds, if you get any value from anything the Marketing Meetup does, just to thank the sponsors. Each one of them have their LinkedIn profiles linked there. You literally just need to click in, say thank you, and it makes a world of difference. I won't go into depth here, but thank you to Pitch, Content Cal, Fiverr, Redgate, Cambridge Marketing College, Ledo, Brand, Further, Third Light, Bravo, and Human. Yeah, please just do thank those guys. So for the second time today, Dominic, Rob, welcome to you guys, and thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot, Joe. That's a really good intro. We've got two intros, so it's always Good when you get multiple intros. So my name is Dominic, as covered by Joe very briefly there. So I'm a massive fan of the marketing community within the Marketing Meetup. You guys are awesome. We have been and we are still here to support you guys in any which way that we possibly can. So I've been in recruitment for the last 10 years. On that slide where it says insert generic blurb, that was meant to be there. That's my poor attempts at humour. So, 10 years in marketing recruitment. I head up a team of 25 at Brand Recruitment. So we're based out of offices in Cambridge and Amersham. We cover the central and eastern regions. So that's Leicestershire down to Oxfordshire to Essex up to Norwich, or Norfolk even, and basically everywhere in between. So that's my intro gambit, and then over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Dominic. Let me just try and switch the slides, as I'm an annoying Mac user. Well, hello. My name is Rob, as Joe kindly introduced. I've been founder of Pitch. I've been working in this industry for the best part of 18 years. I've seen it do a few ups and downs, recession in there, change of skill set within the marketing industry, and trends within the recruitment process. I'm probably like most of you, I'm sat at home in a spare room trying to figure out this world while dealing with a couple of kids, including the 2-year-old who wants to be on every Zoom call, which is why I'm doing this from the office today, to save you all from her. A little bit about Pitch. We were set up in 2007. I'm really with an opportunity, with a vision of trying to do recruitment the right way, wanting to contribute and be a part of the industry and add value. And from the day we met, the guys, Joe and James from the Marketing Meetup, it just clicked straight away. Their values and what they're about just makes it an absolute pleasure to contribute on the journey and be here. I think, obviously, we're here to talk about the new normal. What I'm not obviously here to tell you something that you already know. Yes, it is tough. The world has gone a little bit mad, and we have some tough times ahead. Nor am I here to sugarcoat it. Furlough is a fantastic thing that a lot of people are talking about. Joe mentioned it again, the staggering numbers and the costs associated with furlough. It is keeping the recruitment industry or the employment in a sort of artificial state. So, as this sort of grows, I guess we will see how that new normal looks like and what effects that's going to have on the recruitment industry and employment. But recessions do follow certain trends, and that's what Dominic's going to try and enlighten you from our experience back in those days, Dominic. But this isn't any old recession. This isn't just about banks getting it wrong. This is about how we move, our social interactions, working from home. The lockdown, I think, has had a much more profound effect on recruitment than the actual economic sort of impact to follow. So we're here really to try and give you, I guess, some tips, some takeaways, what things you can do today to really equip you for the new normal and for tomorrow, either from an employee perspective, job seeker perspective, which Dominic's going to cover, or I'm looking about from a business employer perspective or management perspective. And I think it's interesting to see both sides. I guess from my point of view, this is either a really, really scary place to go into, or actually, if you think about it, it can be an opportunity for positive change, an opportunity to be creative and actually to find excitement on it. Whilst I know we've got some tough time ahead, I think we can learn a lot from this. So that's kind of trying to, give you some takeaways that actually can be positively used as we go on. So I'm going to hand you back over to Dominic. I'm in charge of your slides, Dominic. So I will be your friendly assistant throughout.
Perfect. Yeah. Take it at its very best. So,
Right.
so I mean, look, what we're firstly going to do is basically just let's just create a bit of context. So let's look at the joyous subject of recession. Because we are now in a recession. So we've got donuts there on the slides because there's nothing more happy than donuts. So, let's try and work our way through it. So if you do a little click for me, Rob, that's okay. So first of all, let's just look at it in a brief kind of one-stop shop in terms of what we're looking at. This is industry-wide. So we're looking at less buying, typically in most areas of the market, both B2B and B2C, less overall growth, more consolidation, lower disposable budgets, rightly or wrongly, which I will be covering off very shortly, and more measurable business tactics used for budget justification as well. So let's just bundle those three together quickly and just put it in quite a more of a personalized kind of view, so we can all get our head around it. So let's give examples within our personal lives. So so let's say you have your household, you obviously have potentially less income coming in. Let's just say that in terms of, so you've got less sales, you've got less income coming in, you're not going to spend as much. So you're going to be a little bit more concerned about your potential growth, or in which direction the business is potentially going to go in the future. So you're going to you're going to be working towards further consolidation. There's going to be lower disposable budgets. By no means am I describing marketing budgets as disposable budgets there, guys. So just to clarify, but rightly or wrongly, and businesses will need to start looking at their spending element to make sure that, especially when we go down into the recruitment area, the recruitment level of business in the general terms, that is going to be self-sustaining. You are going to be able to onboard these people and have enough work out there for them to be carrying out what they need to be doing. So business decision makers, they're obviously going to be a lot more cautious. So they're going to be assessing their actions with much more thorough consideration. Chances are they will probably be looking at things in much more depth. So that will range anything from buying decisions right the way through to employment decisions as well. So, I mean, without turning it into some form of GCSE business studies course, that we're all on, that's the context in which we are, in currently, in terms of just general business. So, in terms of recruitment specifically, obviously within recession periods, Rob knows this, I know this previously before. So, back in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were looking at periods of much slower growth, and what that meant was, for those, anywhere between a year to 2 years, it really meant that businesses were a little bit more apprehensive when coming up with generating big ideas about recruitment campaigns, and I suppose the direction of the business has changed slightly. It's much more about seeing what they already have, and then what they already have, and then complementing those skills with further people who they bring on board through their own recruitment practices. So look, there's typically less role vacancies with more potential candidates. It's common sense with regards to that. We can look at employment stats and that side of things. Rob, do you mind if you just give us a quick click? And this is actually the opposite to what we've experienced over the years within marketing recruitment. So, for the last, dare I say it, 3 or 4 years, and Rob will probably agree with this, it's been a really candidate-led market. You had multiple candidates with multiple job offers on the table right up until recently. So this is a snapshot, so obviously reliable sources here. So from the Office of National Statistics and also Adzuna. Adzuna are a big job board, and they give us some really good insights. So online job vacancies fell by more than half in the 2 months to the start of May. Vacancies falling from 820,000 at the beginning of April to 373 in May. So, I mean, what that's telling us in general, these aren't marketing stats, by the way, this is in general. This is telling us that the market isn't growing in terms of, new additional people coming on board within these businesses. There's still people being employed, but at a much lower rate. So another click for me, Rob. However, look, this is where the silver lining should then come in. So look, all of the data which has come from analysing recession marketing practice, all of it has shown that actually businesses who still invest in marketing, they, at the end of it, they come out on top. So, I mean, we can send out these links and send out these bits and pieces so you've got it all. I found a really nice data snapshot, which basically puts it all very much in layman's terms. And this is backdated right away from from the Second World War all the way through to current day. So we'll get those out to everybody if that's all right. So next one, if we can, Rob. Right, so job seeker challenges during and post-COVID. So that's what we're here looking at now. For us to look at this, we really need to have a very honest approach and sort of self-critique going on. There's no point in looking at this in terms of it's just about me and my current circumstances. It really is about looking at everything in context. That's probably the best way to put it. Same again, please, Rob. Market and environmental challenges. So, I mean, we are literally just going to whistle through these. There's going to be lots of job seekers looking for roles. There's more competition, meaning you are going to need to stand out a lot more within the job market. You know, your online profiling, your external facing profile probably needs to be, you know, as strong as possible. And you need to stand out for the right reasons. So, I mean, standing out, that's not just making noise. That's probably the best way to put it. You know, it's working with people, it's helping people, it's generating, you know, your own, dare I say it, your own personal brand in some ways as well. And there's lots to be said for, you know, technology and that side of things. Obviously, the lack of face-to-face meetings currently happening at the moment, and I know, obviously, Joe's done an amazing job turning the Marketing Meetup into the webinar state rather than, you know, face-to-face meetings and everything like that. But it will get to the point where face-to-face meetings will come back again. And obviously, we need to prep ourselves for that. But at the same time, we also need to be prepping ourselves in the short term for a prolonged period of, you know, being reliant on technology. So I have to admit, I hate technology, always have. I'm not going to say I always will, because I am coming around to it. There's lots of really, really good platforms coming out and about at the moment. But creating that comfort zone between yourself, your personal space, and then the technology you use. It's a really, really good way of making sure that you are able to put yourself out there. That's probably the best way to put it, if that makes any sense. So business requirements are going to be changing. Candidates are going to be positioned in different ways as well. So don't be too surprised if it heads a little bit more down the technology side of things over the course of the next 6 months to a year, because it probably will. So have a little click, please, Rob. Right, so there's nothing that makes people smile more than baby pictures. So look, I mean, there's going to be lots of challenging personal things which people have to work their way through at the moment. So that's my 8-month daughter, Darcy, and she's donning a Marketing Meetup onesie. Onesie, that's baby grow, isn't it, I suppose. So at least we know that Joe is working in the background making children's apparel as well. So it's a backup business for you there, Joe.
Nice diversification right there.
Exactly. So let's just look at, you know, sort of growth, personal growth. So look, we are weighing up what may now be important. So in saying that, you guys are probably expecting me to kind of edge more towards, well, you know, family might be the orientation now. It may be. I mean, look, I'll use my own personal sort of situation. I have used the last 10 weeks, and it may shock you guys to know that actually I've realized that I really need the office environment. I need to be speaking to people. I need that to you know, to have a clear working head, if that makes any sense. And, you know, that family element, there's going to be so many personal parts to your career, but then also job search as well. There's so many things which you'll need to weigh up to make sure that your career moving forward is fitting into what you see the future being as well. Obviously, this has changed the circumstances for so many people, you know, some for the positive, some for the negative. And I know there's a poll question as well with regards to working from home and work-life balance and things like that. This isn't a family therapy session by all means, but what it is I think what we do need to do is really look at ourselves in terms of our job search, in terms of what really makes us happy. Because once you start to find that, that will dictate which way your job search will go and the criteria in which you start searching. So, the roles which might suit you best as well. So, again, just looking at roles in a little bit more depth, let's start thinking about addressing some of those challenges which the companies are going to be facing. Rob's going to cover those, but let's just look at those, challenges surrounding lower budgets, budget allocation to different business areas and things like that. So I think anything which you can do to identify roles which suit your skill set, but then you can also demonstrate that you can excel within that field. That is where you need to position yourself. So lots of figures, lots of measurement based, anything to do with ROI. So really make it plain, clear and obvious to potential clients or internal recruiters that you have done this before, potentially in challenging circumstances, under tight budget restrictions, and you can do it with a return on investment. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, it's a little bit like the marketing which everybody puts out anyway. Identify the need and target that. If you're targeting it, then at least it's going to resonate more. So linked to that, critique your own skill set as well. So really play on your strengths. And this could be how you position yourself, in online forums, for instance, as well. If there is a discussion, really think about, how you can interact with that discussion to the best of your ability. And the asterisk part at the bottom, it's okay to admit that you're not good at everything. Being a jack of all trades is fantastic, but as long as there are certain areas of passion which you can then transfer and really push on, if that makes any sense. Because the problem that we might have, if you're a jack of trades with everything, you will be going up against certain people who will specialize in certain areas within marketing. And it will become apparent to the client or the business that they need certain skills and skill sets to be covered off. So just really, really focusing on those if you can. So Rob, can we have a click? The reason why I put this a little bit in is really just about not undervaluing your skill set and your experience. This isn't a situation of complete business reset. Don't consider your job search now as something as if you're going in at the very bottom end. You're not starting again. And so many people, honestly, I've spoken to so many people who they're almost considering it as, having to take 2 or 3 steps down the ladder to be able to start working again. Or, when you're considering a role, being in a position where you are considering something considerably less than your experience level. You don't need to do that, but you just need to be a little bit more realistic potentially in terms of the context of both the business and then also the potential candidates who you might be up against. For instance, if you're a marketing director and you're applying for a marketing executive position, really just think about that dynamic. If you were 6 months ago still in your marketing director role, would you then also take on another marketing director in a marketing exec position? Possibly not. Likewise, it works the other way. Admittedly, the sky is the limit with some of the the jobs as it stands at the moment. So don't be too scared to try and push the boundaries a little bit as well. There's lots of doom and gloom, but the job search really doesn't have to be one of them. If that makes sense. So have a click, Rob. So action planning. So this is on the candidate side. So what we need to start doing is just looking at areas of development. So skill set, areas of development, any free courses, digital courses, community shared courses to develop any skills. Definitely focus in on digital, social media. That's gone through the roof. Some of our biggest clients are currently just doing a hell of a lot of investment within social media. And agency work also. So whilst agency budgets would have been slashed when the announcement of COVID was around, if you are working in-house at the moment, but you can consider agency positions and you haven't considered it before, well, look at that in terms of a skill set. That's a skill set thing, not an experience thing. So And again, it's just about seeing how your skill set can evolve and adapt. And if you've got fantastic, personal skills, you love managing multiple projects, actually agency life could really, really suit you. We might find that budgets for agencies recover quicker than budgets for in-house positions as it stands at the moment, just because it's reactive, it's less committal. Again, just looking at, addressing those concerns which we noted previously before. Video calls, practice your video calls. Definitely practice video calls. There's a few recruitment platforms which have been developed where they are two-way videos, and these platforms allow that video conversation to be recorded. So it's a bit more high pressure. It's a little bit more pressure than just having a regular conversation. So just get used to video. It's definitely going to stick around. There's going to be lots of, as mentioned, lots of new tech coming out as well. So CV and personal online profile. I'm hoping that we're going to cover a lot of this in the Q&A as well. But your CV is your own piece of work. Don't, what's that saying? Opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one, so just really stick to your own guns with regards to your CV. If you think your CV looks great as a 2-page CV, perfect. If you think your CV warrants 3, 4, 5 pages, that's fine as well. Just put it into context in terms of the amount of your experience which you do have, but just make it punchy, make it relevant. There was a horrific stat that came out 2 years ago that the average hiring manager only spent anywhere between 8 and 13 seconds on a CV before judging it. So it does need to be punchy. It needs to have figures in there. You also need to make sure that your first 2 roles are your most pronounced, ideally with some form of intro. So just little snippets like that. Your online profile also, LinkedIn, just make sure your LinkedIn platform is completely up to date picture. You also want some form of bio in there. Think of yourself as a product. That's the best way to put it. Think of yourself as a product. As a buyer of your product, would you buy yourself? So really look at, having looked at your LinkedIn profile, are the telltale signs there that you have been part of a business which has grown, or or can you demonstrate in some way on your LinkedIn some of your achievements? That's definitely something to go with as well. And ask for referrals, ask for recommendations. If you've worked with people for a long period of time, ask for those recommendations, because it looks fantastic when you go through on a profile. It really does. So I know that we've done these previously before, and we are working our way through these CV sessions as well, both myself, Rob, and our respective teams. We're going to be getting another link to CV sessions via the Marketing Meetup as well, so people can have tailored CV sessions with us and our businesses, just to make sure that you are tailoring your CV in a way that is most productive to be out there in the public domain. So in short, your own job search it's a personal endeavor, and it's what you put into it. I know lots of people say, treat it as a full-time job. I wouldn't. If I were you, don't treat your job search as a full-time job, because it at times it can be pretty soul destroying, and it's really important to be in a position of positivity and really looking and targeting things which you're really looking for, rather than having a scattergun approach. That would be my advice as well. So final click. That's right.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
There we go. So this is a personal quote, and yes, I am going to use my own quote. Each day is another occasion when we can have a positive impact on ourselves and others around us. Positivity is key. Positivity expert. So yeah, I think with that, there's a lot of things to feel a bit quite down about as it stands at the moment. Very honestly, your job search doesn't need to be one of those. It's something which it will come. There will be progress there, but it's just about focusing your efforts in the right areas, really. So yeah. So that leads on to the employer section now. So this is more on a management side. So Rob's going to be handling this one. Thanks a lot, guys, for that.
Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to. Oh, Zoom sharing. I'm struggling with the sharing facility, Joe.
Is one of the joyful tech foibles. I thought that was really excellent, Dominic. While we figure out the tech, maybe we take the first question, which is rise to the top. And before we get to Rob's part, which is, do you think candidates who are currently furloughed will be seen negatively compared to those who have been kept in work?
Absolutely not. No, and I'm going to link this to redundancy as well. It's the same. It's very, very different when we go into a recession situation. So candidates who have been made redundant, candidates who are also furloughed, that's a circumstance which many people have found themselves in because of something completely out of their control. So try not to look into that too much, because employers and potential clients, they will be thinking about that in exactly the same way. Chances are they probably will have had to have furloughed people themselves. So yeah, hopefully that helps with that somewhat.
Wicked. Sweet. Over to you, Rob. We can see your screen.
Figured out the tech. Yeah, I figured out the tech. Thanks, Dominic. No, I agree with everything you just shared. Look, excuse me, I'm trying to do the same thing from an employer's perspective. Even if you're not an employer or not a sort of a team manager, hopefully this can also kind of see what we're seeing from the client's perspective as well, so we can try and marry things up. From an employer challenges, these are the key things that I want to cover and explain briefly what they are. So obviously this is affecting everybody, work, at home, family dynamics, our children's education. So looking at how that transpires into the working world, depending on kind of how you see the working world. The culture and communication in businesses, how you recruit as a business during a lockdown and coming out of that lockdown, should tie into some of the things that obviously Dominic's covered from a job seeker's perspective. And favouring spreadsheets over people, and it probably leaps in quite nicely to the question you just answered. So this whole, obviously, we're in this together, which feels like a good vibe question, a statement, because we kind of are. But are we? And the way I see it from a kind of work perspective, we've got broadly 5 groups of people. We have those who've been on furlough, those were a 9-to-5 office person, maybe like Dominic, who's now craving that environment and is working from home. Those who've worked as normal. And I know outside of our industry, we have those frontline key workers, but even in our own industry, there's some people who have still come to work and have lived maybe through a level of anxiety and stress and doing that commute through a time where we're told that, that puts us at risk. The heads of the businesses and departments, those trying to navigate and survive and figure a way of trading outside of this, and the forgotten. We are talking about those people who didn't have a job. They weren't caught by furlough. They had their job offers pulled at 5 p.m. the day before they started, because we saw that. Sole traders, freelancers, and contractors who are an absolute bloodline of this industry. And we must obviously think about those guys that we rely on in our businesses when there's a big project, who have really struggled through this. So for me, how they all see the world is slightly different. So we're 10 weeks or 11 weeks in now. Where does that leave us? What is everyone thinking? We think the first thing that companies are really going to have to think about is sewing back that culture, getting teams back together, getting productivity going again. And we saw a growing divide from the calls that we've had. I'm sure Dominic's had with candidates and clients, and we saw a real issue starting to rise. So we actually ran a survey a couple of weeks ago. We asked furloughed candidates of ours, people still working, and our clients, just, look, what are they thinking? What's on their mind? What's their pain and pressure points right now? We had actually a fantastic response. So there's just a few bits I'm quickly going to pick out just to get us all thinking about these. The first thing we asked is business owners, are they worried about the impact in culture in this? and 50% said, this is a concern. We're really concerned that this is going to, damage our culture. And that's the people who are honest with saying about that. So that's a staggering amount. But also what I thought was a very interesting fact is when we ask companies, how do you think your team, your employees are faring towards their commitment to the business? And we had 78% say that they are starting to see a two-tier workforce. Those who have risen to the challenge, they've kept engaged with the brand, they're fighting for the business, they're checking out how things are going. And those who've just sort of distanced a little bit. So that's quite a staggering number at a time where businesses are looking at their workforce, like, who is going to fight us out of this? Who are going to be on our side? Who's the A team? But if we flip the script for a minute and we look at it from the employee's perspective, this is people who are not looking for a job before, hunky-dory, happy as a Larry, and now are thinking, well, after this is sort of coming back to some sort of normal, would you look for a job? And you can see at the bottom there, 60% of those furloughed are saying, I'm probably going to look for a job. And I do think, there is that perhaps feel of, well, I was furloughed, I'm dispensable, I'm maybe not as important, and I've lost that engagement with the business. Now, that isn't, as Dominic said, always true. Realistically through this, you have to make the decisions to control costs, and furlough is a great way to doing that. It doesn't mean that those on furlough are at high risk of losing their job. But what it does mean, looking at this, is people in that situation do feel really worried. And job security, again, at the top, furlough, feeling really nervous about job security moving forward. And if Joe says that that's a quarter of the workforce, that's a massive worry going on from those on a furlough perspective. So I think for me, that's a big challenge to consider. And before we go into how to recruit, you've got to sort of think about, well, we're 10 weeks in, and if your company has values around we're a family feel, we look after each other, teamwork, etc., and you've furloughed a big part of your workforce via email and you haven't got in touch with them, and you want to turn the tap on in a few weeks, unfortunately at the moment, we're in this together. Employees are going along with it because they're worried, they're scared, and they'll play along with sort of smiling along. But you're going to find a real resentment, and this is going to catch businesses down the line. So you really have to make a concerted effort now to work on that culture. Good news is we're only kind of halfway through these sort of lockdown measures, so there's time for change. And I'm talking beyond the weekly Zoom quiz, by the way, which we do. But you've got to try and engage and open a dialogue. Whatever you did before to create your culture, double it, triple it. Video calls, it's just not the same. And that's not anyone's fault. Like, I can't engage with you guys, mainly because I can't see you, as I could if I was in a room with you at a normal marketing meetup. So you have to really take the time to be creative and engage that. And I'll come back onto a few more of these points on my last point at the end there about sort of spreadsheets over people. But quickly going on to actually recruiting now in lockdown. What does that look like? Because yes, the market is contracted, but some are still recruiting. I think on a recruiting perspective, I think Dominic will probably agree with me. We've been telling clients for quite a few years now, look, we've got this great guy. He's an hour and a half away from the office, so he doesn't mind doing that twice a week. But if he could work from home the other 3, he'd be up for that. Or, that person who's relocating from London to Manchester, it's a pain in the bum to come from that first stage. You could do it over Skype, see if there's a meet and greet chemistry, and then second stage, do the trip. 85% of our clients, no, every interview is face-to-face, 9 to 5 in the office, 5 days a week, please. And let's expect that is going to change dramatically. I think that's, stating the obvious, really, especially in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So using tech is going to be a big part of how you interview. So as a company and as an interviewer, you need to think about that too. You also need to think that that person who's great 9 to 5 in an office environment, how would they fare with 3 days working from home? That's not going to be for everybody. Can't just give someone a laptop and be at home and expect them to be able to cope with that. So actually you need special attention around your current employees who you think, maybe back to that graph, have drifted away. How do you bring them back? Is it more than culture? Is it training? Is it development? Or do you have to consider that these people are probably not right for your business anymore? And I know that might sound a bit brutal, but that is how businesses are going to be thinking right now, or should be thinking right now. So that in itself, you know, you need to think about that as a job seeker as well. How do you make yourself a working from home person? So using tech, obviously that's going to have to go on the up. Changing your criteria, as I just talked about. So, you know, what kind of person are you looking for? But the good news is, if you are going to look at tech and be a bit more open to remote, you opening your skill set as a business as well. Now, you might think at the moment, yes, there's a lot of people looking for work, but as you move forward, you can open to get better skills than that just 20 miles from your doorstep. The other thing is changing your management style. A lot is about job seekers adapting, employees must adapt, adapting your CV. But as a business, you need to adapt how you manage people. How you incentivize, motivate, manage will be different remotely than you do in the office. So I also think you need to think about your managers. And if you're a manager yourself, look at yourself and how do I change my management style? There's an absolutely awesome book which I'd encourage anyone who's is managing or wants to manage in this ongoing new world. It's called Drive by Daniel H. Pink. A brilliant book, which basically says the whole carrot and stick style of recruitment. Do this, you get that. If you don't do this properly, you know, this is going to happen. Style, which is proven in all sorts of business and sectors, is the way to manage people. Well, actually, this demonstrates that it isn't. And we've been implementing this sort of style of management in the back end of last year as we went through a bit of a rebrand. So we're already on this journey, and I can tell you, I found it uncomfortable at first, thinking this is going to work. You know, people in charge of their own sort of autonomy, but actually, that's forced upon us now. You have to give people autonomy. You can't look over people at home. No one wants to be micromanaged in an office, let alone when they're in their spare room. And it talks about freedom in the 4 T's, which is task, time, technique, and team. Honestly, it's a great book. But I think without going into that book as itself, changing your management style, hugely important if you're going to go forward in this recruiting and motivating your current team. And then all while we're talking about remote working, working from home, flexible hours, etc., there's a big office somewhere that's got nobody in it. And businesses right now are thinking, all right, well, you know, times are tough. Where do I make those cuts? And commercial property is going to take a hit. I think we all know that. And a bit like Dominic's point around, things do come back. So the difficulty businesses are rightly having now is, do we go all remote forever? Because I do have some clients who physically do not have an office and they function very well, but that is a very, very different type of business. Look at the creative agency environment, you know, creative brainstorming, ideation. That's really hard to do over Skype or Zoom. But you might want to rethink what an office looks like, where the office is. I mean, you've got my headache. My office is in the city centre of Birmingham, where everyone gets on public transport to get to. Do you think that actually it's a rotation? So you've suddenly got less office space, especially if you've got to social distance everybody. So that's a big headache that employers need to be considering. We have clients who said they will not occupy an office until January. And that is, one of them is a big FMCG brand that are flying off the shelves of the supermarkets right now. So it's got nothing really to do with cutting costs, but it's all got to do about, what do people want out of a job? People are going to want some flexibility for long term now because they've had a taste of it. And I'm with Dominic. I like being in the office too, but I have enjoyed having a little bit of flexibility and a little bit more time with my kids. I think that's only human. So I think that's a dialogue that you should be having as a business, but I also think it's a dialogue you should be having with your team. You know, engage, ask them, what are you thinking? But for me, the biggest challenge for businesses, this is the thing which I can't put on a graph, but it's the untangible, but for me is the biggest challenge, is not being human. Right now, and in my humble opinion, businesses have the upper hand. they have the control. They are in charge of furlough. They are keeping people with an income. And those business owners and leaders are also at home. They have detached from the other people because they haven't seen their team, their employees for ages. So they're crunching numbers and they're forgetting that there's people on the end of those numbers. Now, I know you have to be objective and you have to, as a business owner or leader, look after the welfare of your company. And that sometimes means difficult decisions. So I'm not shying away from that. But at the moment, businesses might even not know that they're pushing it too far. So everyone's going to have to take a bit of a hit here. Like, that's just life. So you have to take your team with that. But at the moment, you might be pushing a bit much, and people are saying, yeah, we're in this together, out of fear of not wanting to, push back or disagree. So there's a real consideration businesses have to do to open a serious dialogue with their team and their employees to say, look, this is where we're at. Where's your head at? You've had all this time off. Have your priorities changed? Has your mindset changed? I know there's a lot spinning around employers' minds right now, and team leaders and business owners, but you have to absolutely ring fence the time to understand what people can do to come on this journey with you. Because when the tap starts to turn on over the next few months, I know it might not be an absolute flow, but we are still going to have to return to business. You need people fighting, you need people engaged, you need people motivated, and they need to feel like they've been invested. I do think that this is the biggest thing that a lot of clients aren't doing. They're just doing what needs to be done. And actually, this is a real opportunity to change the script and have everyone involved in it, because they were all learning at the same time. And lockdown, I think, has made a lot of people appreciate the basics in life. Hey, I'll talk to my neighbors now. All this stuff is happening, and I'm enjoying a walk with my 7-year-old, and I didn't do that before. You get caught up in the rat race. So when people start to look for jobs and the market tightens, and it becomes candidate driven again, because it always does as a sector, they'll be looking at those Glassdoor reviews of how you behaved as a business in this time, and they want to know that they're a part of a business that will have their back when stuff hits the fan. And I think that's the biggest thing that you really need to consider in order to attract the right skill now, but have a brand moving forward. It's the same as every marketer on these webinars has probably told you. Show your true colors now, and it will absolutely pay off down the line. And that's it. Oh, and now you can see. Okay, I don't know what's happened now. Can you see me?
There you go.
Are you back, Joe? Are you in charge now?
Yeah, I got you. I was muted myself. This has not been my finest hour in tech, despite what you guys have been saying. So. But thank you both. That was insanely useful. Like, I think there was some really actionable points there. There was some really human points too. And I think also on another level, and this is far from your intended consequence, I think it's also really useful for people to see recruiters, and as living, breathing human beings who actually really, really care about the people that they interact with, because you do. And, that's even useful as a position exercise when people are sending through their CVs and stuff like that, because they start seeing you as people, which is really important. Now, there's been a whole bunch of questions in. We started a bit late, so we've got like 10, 14 minutes-ish to go through them. What I would say to folks is, if you see a question in the Q&A feature that you want answered, give it the thumbs up. There's 45 open right now, so I don't think we're going to have time to go through all of them. So Rob, Dom, we'll have to keep things quite brief with our answers, but if you guys see a question that you want, give it a thumb up, because that's how we're going to be taking them. So straight from the top, and this actually links in with another one of the questions, so I'm going to smash them together. It's from Tammy, who says, where is the best place to keep an eye out and look for quality roles? And then the second part of the question is, someone else asked, can you trust the roles that are on like Indeed and places like that? Because it seems like there's some that might just be there to gather data rather than actually advertise a role.
Sure. I suppose I'll give Rob a bit of a break from talking. I'll try and be as quick as possible. So firstly, best place to view roles. What I would do is, this links to not having your job search as a full-time job itself. Choose one reliable job board. I would say something like Indeed, Read. Those boards are the ones which have the most volume and also the best exposure to clients. So clients will typically go to those job boards first. They're also the biggest. So I would say probably focusing on those ones first. If you go to multiple boards, you'll see the same roles posted across multiple boards. You'll end up, applying for the same position 3 or 4 times. So, and sorry, what was the second one again?
How trustworthy are the roles that are up there?
Yeah, sure. It depends, and I know that's a very shaky way of me sort of saying this. You will find that some job boards, they will repost agency roles to gain traffic. It's a little bit, it's really just to get the traffic through to their website. So even if a role isn't live, it might be reposted 2 or 3 times. So you might find a role that then continues on for 2 months when it was actually placed after only 3 or 4 weeks. So what I would do is, in terms of viewing job roles, I would tend to only apply for any roles where it goes into real detail surrounding the client, and it's actually giving you, the candidate, some insight. And without that insight, chances are actually it may just be an agent or an outside entity just fishing for candidate details to then use as potential kind of spec-ins to clients. That would be my advice anyway.
That's so interesting. Rob, do you have anything to add there, or does that sound?
No, Dominic covers it, definitely.
Awesome. So next question from Tom, who says, hi guys, how easy is it for a marketing manager to switch sectors? And I guess that kind of, there's quite a few questions here, which is like, I'm in FMCG and I want to go to tech or whatever it is. So, that kind of jumping between sectors, how easy is it for folks?
I'm happy to grab that. Again, I'm going to give a bit of a woolly answer because there's not a one size fits all. Obviously, some verticals it's easier to switch into others. There are going to be some industries performing better now. Unfortunately, obviously, leisure hospitality is going to be hit for a little while. But the biggest thing you need to think about is competition. I think that's the best way of answering this question. What is your competition for that role? So if you want to make a switch for a sector, I live by the rule that if you want to do something, then set your mind to it and make it happen. It's just going to be difficult because you are going to be up against candidates who have that CV that looks bang on for the sector. And if in 8 to 13 seconds, a recruiting manager is looking at a CV, it does put you at a disadvantage. So it's all about your presentation. So you will need to go the extra mile. I know that sounds fluffy, but if you present yourself better than the next person, and you make the extra effort, so you're not just applying the CV and then hoping for a reply. You're finding out on LinkedIn who the person's in charge. You're making connections. You're showing yourself on LinkedIn and engaging with those posts and commenting. So if someone does get to your LinkedIn profile, wow, you're talking about FMCG. Oh, but you're in tech. You're engaging. You're picking up the phone and trying to speak to them. So look, I sent you a CV. And obviously, don't harass people. Get the balance right, but you will have to go a little bit above it. If there's any specific sector sort of challenges, then probably one-to-one chat that we can have, either me or Dominic, through the sort of CV surgery. But yes, it is doable, and we see it happen. And I understand if your sector is struggling right now, you might want to find this as a perfect opportunity to go after something new, and so you should.
Nice, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dom. Anything there or?
That was perfect. You said everything I was thinking as well. So.
Fab. Cool. Over to Kate, who says, what skills and training do you think we should be focusing on to make sure we stand out? And I'd probably add another question because Ash has added it in the comments section, which talks about like stuff like qualifications, such as like the CIM and other qualifications out there. There's plenty. So definitely not picking on the CIM, but whichever, what's the value that you guys place on that? And also.
Sure. I'll grab that one if that's all right, Rob. So Yeah, qualifications are always, they're always good. The actual meaning of the word qualifications is qualify you for things. So so you'd hope that it would hold some weight in some way. And qualifications, being completely honest with you, qualifications will only take you so far. And likewise as well, if you are already at a management level, so marketing manager and above, qualifications are less important. I mean, that's been seen, from various pieces of research, in terms of what the hiring managers are looking for in manager level CVs. I would say if you are looking to broaden your skill set, I mean, there's plenty of relatively cheap courses which you can pick up, particularly surrounding social media, engagement side of things, analytics as well. There's one thing I would definitely recommend is just really having a look at the course, see if it's accredited in any way or linked to any well-known establishments. So anything linked to universities is usually a pretty good indication. Likewise, anything which you feel will genuinely help your skill set. And by that, what I mean is there's plenty of very hollow qualifications. I mean, I know several people who have taken very, very comprehensive degrees, myself one of them. In actual fact, what have I really learned from that degree? It's questionable. So I would say that really just have a look at what it is that you can really gain, rather than just having letters on a CV or letters behind your name on a profile. So just do a bit of research. That's probably what I would say. Yeah.
Nice, that's fab. I really like that it actually flips the narrative quite a lot away from look at the CV to look what you can actually do to improve yourself, which ultimately is also the point of the CV, to show that you are that person. So I think that's really good advice. We've got a question here from Aurora, who says, it's a broad one, so it's big, but any tips for cover letters? So keep it short and basic versus going into the detail. Do you include all the topics from the job offer and stuff like that, or do you make it short and punchy? Rob, perhaps if you'd like to start.
Yeah, happy. Right, cover letters. I think you've got to make sure that your CV has a sort of an intro and a blurb, and making sure that the two aren't the same. If you're going to go down the level of a cover letter in the most strictest of terms, first of all, make sure it's adapted to the job. I know you might be applying to lots of jobs, but that is the biggest pet hate, or you've accidentally sent the wrong one to the wrong job. And we get that a lot, like, okay, you've applied to that recruitment company too, have you? Okay. So I know it sounds basic, but pulling stuff out of the job, yes, that's good, but you can take it a step further. This is all about standing out. And we've got the internet, by the way. So go and find out something about that company or that person that you're applying for that's relative, and put that in there. And make sure you put words that stand out, because they're scanning. If you think they're skim reading the CV, they're skim reading your cover letter at the speed of knots. In fact, I'll be honest that many times I go straight to the CV. And then I read the cover letter later if the CV is good. So put words that catch the eye, like Dominic was saying earlier on about stats and ROI, and demonstrate your value in numbers and figures and percentages. Put names, client names, people's names, projects names, stuff that is relevant to that company, that's going to engage them. Talk to them about them as well as you in the cover letter. Show that you've stopped and paid attention to the business to which you're applying. So I would go a little bit further than that around the cover letter.
That makes sense. That's wicked. Thank you. That's really great advice, and actually not something I've heard before. So thank you. Dom, anything there? Or
yeah, same. I would. I've linking back to what Rob mentioned actually about the industry, transferring industry and so on like that. I think if you're going to write a cover note, be straight to the point. Again, sort of between 8 and 13 seconds to review a CV. It's it's a heartbreaking stat that was a stat that came out a couple of years ago, surrounding hiring managers. So just think about getting the impact in there as soon as possible. Make it punchy, and as Rob mentioned, make sure very clear that you understand their business and how you might fit into it.
That's awesome. Thank you. So we've got a question here from Doug, who, I guess there's an element of Mystic Meg here going to come in, but I think it's a relevant question and certainly something that a lot of people will be thinking about, which says, how do you see the jobs market going once we're fully sort of eased back into, I don't want to say the new normal, but you know what I mean. Do you see organizations bunkering down to see how it all goes? Or layered into this, do you see there being a move towards more like interim roles or using outsourced freelancers / consultants? And I guess that's actually quite an interesting general trend about freelancers and consultants too.
I'll jump on that one if that's all right, Rob. So it's all about business confidence, and business confidence will dictate whether that company will then invest further in marketing, first of all. So irrespective of whether, you know, obviously all of us sat in here now, sat in the webinar, we are all linked to marketing. And first and foremost, it's about their marketing budget. You know, if they've got budget there, then they might look to then outsource to agencies, use further freelancers, or they might look to start thinking about hiring. They will only start hiring, however, once they have consolidated what they already have, in a sense, because especially in a recession period, you'd have to be pretty brave or have a hell of a lot of capital behind you to take chances, in a sense. So, I mean, typical periods, you will always see a lag time. So let's just look at, very briefly, I'll scoot through it. So Brexit, the thing that we never hear of anymore. So Brexit, there was a lag time of about 2 months of Brexit. So obviously November, December, and then our peak period then was January. So all of those business plans that were seen before Brexit, they were holding on for those plans. Just because we're in a time of uncertainty at the moment doesn't mean all of those business consultancy built plans, which these companies have spent thousands, hundreds of thousands on to develop, they won't be completely wiped out. They will be on hold. So it is just about waiting for that lag time, in a sense, to kickstart the market again. So I would say, furlough, as Rob mentioned earlier on, it has kept the jobs market on a bit of a limp mode. So we're on limp mode at the moment. As soon as that ends or changes in some way, it does then dictate that teams are going to have to be much more defined. And in that definition then comes whether they can grow and then what that sort of skill set looks like across the whole marketing function. So hopefully that tentatively covers it up. But 3 to 6 months, I think, is realistic recovery period.
Absolutely.
I think what I've seen before with dips in confidence, as Dominic said, it's Brexit or credit crunch, is brands will, obviously they'll consolidate, then they'll start to be a bit brave, and they'll outsource projects. That's agency or the flexible workforce, the forgotten, as I called them earlier on, those valuable freelancers that the industry relies on massively. And then that picks up. And then what businesses do is they think, right, okay, well, we can also then look at scaling up, and then they bring a lot of that in-house.
Right.
Big thing the credit crunch did, I thought, is it took a lot away from agencies, and brands started to invest in their own teams. And rather than having retained projects out to agency, we're doing a lot more project-based and trying to build more functions in-house. So Dominic mentioned about in-house talent. Looking at agency side is definitely something to consider. I wouldn't be surprised if you see agency work picking up in dribs and drabs first, and brands just kind of waiting until they can see a little bit further than next Tuesday before they start recruiting in masses, other than maybe turnover or changes of skill set necessary. So I would expect agency and freelance and then in-house.
Nice. It's really smart answer, and that's some great insight. So thank you. I'm conscious of time, so we're probably going to only do 4 more questions, because those are the ones with 10 votes or more. And then I've made note of the other ones, and I'll send them through, which might be good content marketing for the rest of time, certainly for you guys, but hopefully we can also help a lot of folks. So 4 questions very quickly. The first one's from Lana, who says that they only see jobs that are digital heavy in terms of, skill set. So is it something which they can look to get around, or is it just something that needs to be considered now as part of the... Yeah, I can see nodding from Rob and smiling from Dom. So maybe that's the answer as quickly as that.
I probably think it is. Yeah, that's just the way now. And that's probably a good place to look at the training right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And just to add to that as well, it's just about that word. It's measurability. The reason why it is most popular is just because it's justifiable, and businesses always want to justify marketing spend. So yeah, it's the new norm.
Yep. Nice. You shortened it to the new norm there, so that's a good spin on it. Okay, so we've got a question from Anonymous, who and this might be something you can look back on after the credit crunch and stuff like that, who says, will wages be affected now? There are more candidates for fewer roles. Will companies push down wages, do you think? And that might be something you can use experience rather than knowledge or sight.
I mean, I think wage cuts can be a thing in your current business if you're still working, and that might be something to expect. Less lucrative packages being on offer is probably also something to expect. But something drastic, as in every sort of level role, is going to take a massive step backwards for us. If years, I wouldn't be so quick to jump on that. I think it's more likely, look, we pay what people are worth, but there's just less of those jobs available. Yep. It might be minute tweaks rather than anything drastic. We saw the kind of raise in salaries stagnate in the credit crunch. So there wasn't a year-on-year raise for 2 or 3 years. So expect that, and that puts pressure on the cost of living, obviously. But I wouldn't expect a 35k job suddenly to be advertised for 24. And any company does that, back to what I was covering, is just going to come out with mud on their face.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a question from James, who says, with more people applying for the same roles, how do you cut through the box ticking / possibly automated shortlisting process? And there was another question here, which was about automation of recruitment and stuff like that. So I guess the first question is about standing out through like a box ticking exercise, and then the second is like, is the rumors of automation in recruitment like to be believed, or from yours?
Sure. So I'll cover off the automation one first of all. Actually, that's probably the best way to go. So it does happen. Admittedly, that tactic is employed certainly less on specific roles. I mean, I would be astounded if automation tools for marketing positions were being used for 1-2 positions in any given team. Typically the automation package side of things and the keyword search element, they tend to be deployed for more mass recruitment projects, if that makes any sense. So I mean, they typically also won't be handled by recruiters. We as recruiters at agencies. I'm yet to hear of a single occurrence of any automation-based searching on CVs happening within agency recruitment. It does happen within in-house recruitment, but that is just because there are so many live positions for those roles, and they've got such large workforces. So they might be recruiting for 60 or 70 roles, and they've only got 1 or 2 people to manage those applicants, and hence the reason why they then tend to come out to specialist recruiters who will physically look at every single candidate CV and profile. So hence the reason why they would come out to specialists like brand or specialists like pitch. So it's one of those things where it does happen, and then to focus in on your actual CV and your profile itself in terms of the buzzword side of things, and how do we sort of in essence kind of sift through the candidate profile. It really depends on the client brief, and that client brief will dictate how open the brackets can be in terms of who we can consider. So a company might ask for FMCG experience, so FMCG food background, they will only consider that. That's fine. Our next level as specialist recruiters will be then to ask the question, well, look, if the candidate has sold products, food products into retailers, could you also consider people coming from other tangible products within B2C being sold into retail? And then it just slowly but surely opens up the brackets a little bit more. But it really depends on who's already in the market, what the competition's looking like. For instance, FMCG food positions, they're notoriously difficult to fill because there's less people who tend to look for those roles. They're a bit more stable in terms of longevity within positions. So, but then there's businesses who cash in on the fact that they will just consider B2C people rather than B2B. So that's the best answer that I can give with regards to that. But it's case by case basis in short.
Thanks, Tom. Anything from you, Rob? And maybe anything to add on the standing out through that box ticking exercise? Is that again down to ringing the recruiting manager and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, and I guess like Dominic said, if you're working with a specialist recruiter in your sector, marketing, like the pair of us, you'd hope that you're looking beyond the buzzwords. You've got a consultant who understands the industry, probably understands the company you work at currently, and is able to paint a basic picture more apart from buzzwords. And then comes a conversation and a call, and then you understand a bit the person, the detail behind the CV. And that's where the recruitment agency bit does their game. And I think sometimes in-house, not always, it is just a question, I need that CV to have the buzzwords and tick boxes, and I'll just go through the process and almost just invite people for an interview based on the CV. Like, rather, you'd always, if your CV kind of looks in the ballpark of what the client's briefed us, then there's a call with a consultant to find out more, and then there's that sort of sifting process is more than box ticking. But if you want to play along to capture the box ticking people too, then yeah, make sure there are those keywords around your industry in your CV, so then you can capture all. So yes, it does happen. It's not how our types of businesses operate, because that's the value we add to the clients and the customers. But yes, that does happen. So maybe, yeah, there's an element of playing along a little bit.
That makes sense. That's awesome. Thank you both so much. Like I know that I've learned a lot, so I'm sure that everyone else, hopefully watching, has learned a lot too. I've no doubt they absolutely will. And thank you both for the way that you do business as well. I appreciate that, like, the hearts and souls really has come through for both of you throughout the course of this. So, I'm really grateful for that. For those of you interested, then we still have the CV sessions live until tomorrow to apply for. So we can't, unfortunately, get through everyone. But if you are interested in a 30-minute CV session with Rob, with Dom, or part of their team, then I'll link it in the follow-up email. And then just to reiterate again, then please do take the time to thank the sponsors, because they're so unbelievably important in everything we do with the Marketing Meetup. With all that said, I just want to say thanks to you guys, and thank you to everyone attending. I'm really, really grateful for you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Joe, for making this awesome.
Well, no, appreciate you guys. And even if we started 6 minutes late. So, so nice one. Thanks, guys. And we'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everybody. Bye.